This is Studio 809.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com. There's links to my social media, my columns, my other podcasts, my photography website. You can sign up for my newsletter, and you can even help support this podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. We have a very special podcast today, and it wouldn't be a special podcast if it wasn't with my co-host, Kevin Wild Westendorf.
Hey everyone, it's Kevin Wild Westendorf, and I'm really excited to be here today for this special edition recording. But first, I forgot to mention that you can find me on social media, which is Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf, and my website, wildwestendorf.com.
So you all may be wondering what's so special about today's podcast. I'm glad you asked. Today's podcast is one in a couple that we're doing to mark the 10th anniversary of this podcast. The 10th anniversary will be August 3rd. And all I will say that is just kind of watch your social media next week for some posts I'll have about some special stuff that's coming up in the next week or so. As of Monday, this is coming out on Wednesday, this coming Monday, August 3rd, will be the 10th anniversary of this podcast. August 3rd, 2016 was our first podcast. You were not there. You were not here yet because I launched it with several of them having already been recorded.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I learned was have some stuff ready to go. And sometimes we do that here. I may have podcasts lined up for 2 or 3 episodes already recorded.
Oh, yeah,
stuff like that. But you were right after that. I had some guests, then I brought you on, and you were the co-host, and you've been the co-host ever since. So I appreciate you being here, Kevin, for 10 long years.
It has been a journey.
It has been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. I honestly can say that without you being here to offset me, because I knew right from the beginning that if I didn't have a guest, the worst thing that could happen on this podcast was just me droning on. I needed another voice. And I had some criteria set up for what I wanted. I wanted somebody younger than me, definitely to represent a different generation. I was much younger than that. Let me guess, I was a whole 10 years younger.
Yeah.
So it was a fun, it was been great having you on. You've definitely offered, you've had great ideas. One of which we're going to talk about today was a great idea that you had. Actually, we got it from a listener who reached out to you because we were talking about things we wanted to do for the 10th anniversary.
Yep.
And one of the great listeners that you knew reached out and said, I've got a great idea for you. They had a number of great ideas. We listened to that, and we're actually going to do one of their ideas today. We may pick up a couple of these more as we go down the road in the next month or so. We're not going to stretch out this 10th anniversary thing forever because that'd be kind of silly. And one of the things I was thinking when we were talking about setting up for the 10th anniversary was I didn't want this, how do I want to word it? I didn't want us to be talking about how great we've been over the last 10 years. We've done a lot. This is going to be number 477, I believe. So 500 is not far around the corner. But I didn't want to just talk about that. And it was hard for me. I've been asked by some people in the media, like, what was your favorite podcast? I'm like, well, after almost 500 of them, it's hard to say.
Oh, yeah.
I will say that the interview podcast I love when I have guests on because they're either people who are important in this local area, the Pikes Peak region, about outdoor recreation, or they're people from other parts of the country with different points of view, or they're specialists in their different fields that affect outdoor recreation, or they're authors of books who've written we've had some great book authors on here. We've talked about nutrition, and we've talked about hiking experiences and survival. All of these have been good. And then when you and I sit down, Kevin, they're great podcasts too, because we bring our first person into it, which I think the listeners, from everything I can gather, they like not only hearing the guests that are on and hearing from people from different points of view. I had a National Geographic photographer on here a year ago. I mean, we've had some great people on here, but they also like hearing real firsthand experiences. And we typically write mostly about, I'm getting this confused with my column. One of the questions I've been asked was, how does this and my newspaper columns relate? And the answer is not really all that much. But one of the things we talk a lot about here is day hikes. And we could talk about, through hiking a lot and climbing all the 14ers in the state. But to be fair, Kevin, I think you'll agree that most of our listeners, that's not what they do. they're a lot like you and I. They're working and they have jobs and they have families and they don't all have time to do through hike. Now, I've had through hikers on here, but they're mostly day hikers. So that's kind of what we talk about the most. And some of our hikes are easy and some of our hikes are hard and some of them are pretty adventurous, like when you made a wrong turn and added 20 miles to a hike, which I'm not saying that to pick on you. You've talked a lot about that on this podcast. It happens, where I had to be rescued off of a mountain because I couldn't find my way out of there. Things have happened, and I think people relate to that. So what we've decided to do, thanks to the listeners out there who've helped us a little bit, we decided to talk about some of the more important things that have happened to you and I, Kevin and I, here over the last 10 years, because we think that that's kind of what people, I think, they'll relate to the most. And this is something that, it's not just going to sound like we're patting ourselves on the back, because when you see what we're talking about here, you're going to see that some of these are pretty mundane, but they were important to us for a reason. And what we're talking about was, and I think Kevin has done the same list, is over the last 10 years, I picked one hike out of each year, starting in 2016. That's when we started this. What were my favorite hikes, my favorite hike, singular, of that year? I went through my database every year. I scrolled through the list every year to see what it was. And sometimes that one was good. Then I get further down the list and go, nope, this one was better.
Yep.
They're not all hard trails. They're not all exotic locations, but they were special for a reason. And that's what you and I are going to talk about. That you're doing the same list, right? Or are you doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. And Kevin and I took this idea, and again, it was from a great email from a listener who had a lot of suggestions. And so I told Kevin, this is what I'm going to do. And Kevin didn't tell me until just a few minutes ago what list he picked. And he accidentally picked the same list incidentally picked the same list that I did. So we both actually are working off the same list. And Kevin, what I think we'll do is we'll go back and forth year to year.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of me just going down my 10 list. You take yours, I'll take mine. So folks, this is to mark our 10th anniversary of talking to you all about hiking and outdoor recreation. We're going to talk about our 10 favorite hikes over the last 10 years, one per year. And this was interesting because I'm thinking, what if I didn't have anything outstanding during a year? Turns out, I kind of did. So I was worried I was going to say, well, 2017 kind of sucked, so I picked 2 from 2018. Not what happened. There was actually some good stuff here every year.
Mine is not one hike per each year. It's just 10 outstanding hikes in the last 10 years.
So Kevin's taking a slightly different tact. I actually went year to year. Kevin picked 10, and that's fine. That's 10 hikes over 10 years. That's a great list. I went year to year. So we took on the same idea. We're going to do our 10 best hikes, but we're going to do it a little bit different. I'm actually going to go year by year. Kevin's just going to throw 10 great hikes at you. And we're both going to talk about why these are special. We'll keep it kind of brief. We're not going to give you a long story. Unless you've got a really great story, then we'll do a long story. But if not, we'll talk about our 10 favorite hikes during the year. Kevin, we should have flipped a coin like they do at the beginning of an NFL game to see who goes first.
Oh, yep.
But I'll tell you what, since I'm looking at my list, let me start off with this.
Okay.
And it's not just trails, it's actually the specific hike that we did that year. So I'm going to start off with 2016. And this was the Bright Angel Trail in the Grand Canyon. This was the trail up from the Phantom Ranch, the bottom of the Grand Canyon, up to the top at the El Tovar. Comes out right by the El Tovar Lodge, Hotel, Inn, up there. This was November 1st of 2016. It was 12.6 miles one way. Why is this my favorite hike? Well, I could say going down the South Kaibab Trail, which was a lot of excitement, but that trail sucked.
It does. It is not a fun trail.
You've been on it. It's a very steep trail. It's a lot of downhill. The Bright Angel Trail, I thought, was a little bit more scenic. Definitely a nicer environment. And it was the friggin' Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of people do the Grand Canyon, but I will bet that there are a lot of listeners listening to this right now who've never done it. And it is not for the faint of heart. Not to be done this time of year. Like I said, this was November 1st. We went down toward the end of October and came up November 1st. So this was we spent Halloween at the Phantom Ranch, which was a blast.
Oh, nice.
Everybody down there working was dressed up and everything.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that was my favorite. I mean, it was the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And for no other reason, an epic journey. Now you've done, of course, you're a maniac. You've done rim to rim to rim in one shot. I'm far too old and have far too many creaky knees. Not that people my age can't do it, but it's a hard hike, and to me, that's like not my cup of tea. Kudos to you for doing it, and the many people who do it. Not my cup of tea necessarily. I enjoyed this one. We went down. We spent a couple days. We came back up. Had a blast. So for 2016, my favorite hike was the Bright Angel Trail in the Grand Canyon from the bottom up on November 1st for 12.6 miles. What was your favorite? What's your first one?
So my first one is actually from the year of 2016, and it was the hike to the Delicate Arch in Arches National Park. This was not my first time there, but I was on my way to a family reunion, and my ex and I had just broken up, and we had plans to do this road trip, and I decided, hey, I'm just gonna go solo.
I remember this,
and that's when I discovered my just sheer love of road trips and being solo, and because of the breakup and everything, like I was going through a hard time, so I got the crazy idea to get off work, try to sleep as much as I could, then take off from the Springs, drive straight through to Moab and Arches, and hike to the Delicate Arch for the sunrise, and it was just stunning. And there was a meteor shower that night too, so the sky was just exploding the entire time. It was just phenomenal, and that's when I was like, you know what, life is gonna be fine. And so it's just a memory that sticks out for me.
That's awesome. I did not have that on my list. I think the last time I did it might have, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure I've done it since then. Yeah, there are a few places prettier than anything out there in Moab and Delicate Arch. Good choice. That was a really good choice.
Cool, thank you.
I wish I'd have been out. Boy, going out there in the dark. And what's it take? At that time of the night, you probably got out there in about 6 hours.
Yeah.
About 6 hours because there's no traffic. You can just zip out there. Cool. All right. For 2017, and I don't even know how to pronounce this, Hanakapa Waterfall Trail in Kauai, Hawaii. November 15th, 7.85 miles. This is on the north coast, the north side of Kauai. You can hike to this trail and then hike this trail back up this long, narrow canyon, crossing the creek a number of times. You know, a lot of just wait. And when you're crossing the creek, I'm not talking about your rock hopping, wading across this very rapid rushing creek to get to this waterfall way in the back. I think for me it was an important one because it was the first. I was in a strange place, 3,000 miles. I don't know, is that far? 2,000 miles, a long way from here, by myself, a solo trip like you did, and it was stunning at the end, and that whole trip was great. I mean, this was not the only hike I did out there. I was out there for a week. I did a number of hikes, but this to me it was really an adventure. It kind of defined, you know, what an adventure is to go back to this waterfall. Somewhere I have to go back and look at I obviously know what date it is, so I have to go back and look for the pictures of it. But it was just a stunningly
nice,
interesting, fun, tested my mettle a little bit. You know, I was 10 years less wise. Okay, maybe I'm not so wise. 10 years less experienced than I have now, just a blast. So I'm glad I got to do that. So that was my 2017 hike. If you do that hike, I will tell you that I did it in November. Plenty warm. Obviously, it's Hawaii. Months the rainy season there, I guess. So it was that creek was running, and a lot of wading across the creek and a lot of questioning my wisdom. But it was cool to do. It was just an accomplishment to do. So that's my 2017 hike. What's your next one?
So my next one is Black Canyon up to Gunnison. It was during one of my road trips that I decided to stop there as part of a larger trip where I also stopped in Mesa Verde, which is incredible, in Canyonlands too. But what really stood out about this specific hike is that they don't really have trails. It's just routes because it just goes from the top of the rim straight down. So that part of it was adventurous, and it was a change of pace from what I usually hike. But what made this one fun, it was about halfway down the canyon wall, it starts to rain very, very hard. I get down at the bottom, and this was like towards the end of spring of that year, so everything was just like lush and green, and it's raining, so it's just made for very cool visuals. You know, you had fog going through the areas, so you're standing at the river with these giant canyon walls around you. The river itself was roaring. Then I decided it was time to head back up, and that's when it started snowing. And so it's just snowing and snowing, and there's parts of the route that you have to hold onto a chain that has been installed in the ground. And so I'm trying to do that, and I didn't have gloves on because it was really nice earlier, and my hands are slipping on the chain because it's gotten wet. It's snowing. The route itself has already gotten muddy from the rain. Get to the top, and I went into the visitor center to watch the movie about the history of the area. And of course, I'm just like I'm just soaking wet. Then I walked out after the movie, and it was a beautiful blue sunny sky, and the snow was starting to melt, and it's just like it was such a contrast to when I started, where it was warm and dry. And the weather just changed like rapidly, and then to walk out and just to see such a different environment, like it was just a very unique type of hike, and I loved it.
Black Canyon of the Guns. I think you're probably on the same trail I was. Is that the one you had the chains?
Yeah.
I've done that trail too. It's an adventure.
It is.
It definitely is. It did not make my list. I'd have to go back and see when I did that. That might have been more than 10 years ago. I don't know. But that's a great hike, and I know the place you're talking about. And yeah, the weather there is nuts. It's nuts there. So yeah, you can go from rain to snow to clear, and well, it's Colorado, people. It happens. My 2018 hike. This one may sound a little mundane, but it was a good, fun hike. This was the Lost Man Loop hike on Independence Pass.
Okay.
August 7th at 9.06 miles. Now, I want to preface that by saying that was also the same year as I went to the Galapagos Islands. So why aren't any of those hikes on here, Bob? Well, to be fair, we did some hiking, but it wasn't like it was long distances or anything like that. Photographically, that was the best. Those were the best times, but they were all relatively short hikes. You don't do a lot of long hikes on those trips. So as much as that was probably one of the best experiences of my life, it wasn't the best hike I'd done for the year. Lost Man Loop is a lot of fun. It comes off the top of Independence Pass, and you hike past Lincoln's Lake, which is right near the trailhead, and then you go by American Lake, and then you go all the way up to the top to Lost Man Lake. And a lot of people go up there and come back, but me and a couple of friends, and Cole was just a pup at the time, able to do much. He's sitting here below us, just snoozing underneath the desk. You then can make that into kind of a loop. You keep going past the lake. Once you get up to the lake, which is uphill all the way, but it's not hard, you then circle around and drop down. You come down several miles down the road. So you have to do this as a 2-car shuttle, which is what we did. We drove down to the bottom, not the bottom, but we down to the lower trailhead, Lost Man trailhead, parked one car, drove back up, parked the other car at the trailhead. And this is right near just over the west side of the top of Independence Pass. It was such a beautiful hike. Wildflowers blooming. Well, this was actually, it was August. Wildflowers were blooming, beautiful views, lakes after lake. And I love lakes, hiking up the lake. So lake after lake after lake. And then this nice long hike, 3 of us and the dog, just having a great time doing that. So for 2018, the Lost Man Loop hike on Independence Pass. And it was, like I said, 9 miles. So a bit of a hike. These are not like the longest hikes or the hardest hikes or anything. This was not the hardest hike I did in the year, but it was a lot of fun to do. So that's my 2018 hike. What's your next one?
So my next one is the really obvious one. It's the rim to rim to rim hike that I did in Grand Canyon. Because that was just such a feat of testing myself, not just in a physical sense, but mentally too. And I've talked about that hike a million times on this show, so I'm not going to tell like another story about it. But one of the moments that stands out from that hike that I will never forget is when I took that last stop, and the sense of accomplishment, which is overwhelming. And like I was so happy I did it and I was glad it was done, but I wasn't like, oh, good. Okay, I like it's downhill after this, but it was just that moment. Like I felt on such a high level, and yeah, that's one of the many memories of the trip. But that one really sticks out.
Yeah, I remember you doing it. We've talked a lot about that, but that is a feat, and it definitely belongs on your list. I mean, it was a feat of endurance and everything else to go up there and do that hike. So that's a great one. For 2019, I actually go back to where you just were on 2 hikes ago, the Fisher's Tower Trail, which is just outside of Moab, Utah, May 20th, 4.43 miles. Now, what are the Fisher Towers? If you come into Moab on the scenic byway, it kind of goes along the river.
It's a beautiful drive.
Beautiful ride. Absolutely. I would highly recommend that instead of just driving down the highway from I-70. When you get near Moab, there's these 2 tall, thin spires sticking up. They're off in the distance. To give it some context, a while back there was a TV commercial for a credit card which featured a world-class rock climber, free climber, and she would climb to the top of this narrow thing. I mean, there's barely enough room to stand on the top of it. And it talked about, the commercial was about buying the equipment. You know, obviously they were, how do you relate these things? And I remember seeing that commercial going, I know that's the Fisher Towers. I recognize them. And it turns out, now, before anybody gets curious, I did not climb those things. I am not a climber. But I hiked around them. It made my list because, A, they're incredibly prominent. They're incredibly iconic. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you've seen pictures of the Fisher Towers.
Oh, yeah.
When you're coming down the scenic byway to Moab, there's a spot there before the road makes a bend to the west and heads towards the town of Moab, where if you get there the right time of the day, you can pull up the side of the road. And I've got this picture of these Fisher Towers reflecting in the river. Beautiful pictures. I've gotten it a number of times. It was just a fun hike around this iconic rock formation. And it was fun to go out there. Nothing crazy difficult about it. Nothing nuts, but it was just like the one that stood out because it's just such an icon to be able to go right up to it and see it and touch it and look at it and stuff like that. So for 2019, that was my favorite hike. What's your next one?
My next one is, I just remember 2020 being nuts. So it was hard to focus on hiking that entire year. But Lake San Isabel, that is up north, outside of Boulder. I'm trying to remember the town it's like right next to. It's north.
That up near Brainerd Lake, or
yes.
So it's near Nederland.
Yes.
Okay.
I went out there with a friend of mine, and it was just stunningly beautiful the entire way. And it felt like the first good mental health hike in 2020, because I was with my friend, and this was when we were starting to learn that it's pretty safe to be outside, like in crowds and stuff. And it's not a hard trail at all. We like you just go up to the lake and then back. It's mostly flat, but towards where the lake is, when you get past that, you can go uphill a bit and reach this ridge. So we went up to this ridge and then we came back down, but I remember it just being beautiful, and it was nice to just go for a relaxing hike, because I don't think every hike needs to be a workout, it needs to be this and that and stuff. It's just nice to go for a glorified walk in a park.
Like I said, most of these hikes that I'm talking about are not difficult or epics or anything like that, other than they're just my favorite for that year. For 2020, this one is near Sedona, Arizona. It is the Sterling Pass Trail to Vultee Arch. I did it February 27th, 5.38 miles round trip. Vultee Arch is this wide, flat arch. And we usually picture arches as being out in the middle of the desert, like at Arches National Park, like at Canyonlands and places like that. This is deep in the woods.
Oh, okay.
This is deep in the forest. a lot of people approach this from the trailheads that come off the north side of Sedona, kind of west of town. This one I did off of 89A near Slide Rock State Park. So if you're familiar with that, you know where Slide Rock State Park is. Don't park at the state park. I parked on the side of the road, and I liked this one because it was the lesser used route to this arch, which is a wide, you picture arch as being an arch, like the big arch in St. Louis or McDonald's arches or something like that. This is kind of a flat arch, for lack of a better way to put it. But you can get to it. So this arch takes, to get there, you have to climb up this very steep ridge, and then it's like a knife edge when you get up there, and you just climb straight back down the other side. And then you walk over, and you can see the arch from there. You walk over to the arch, and it was kind of like this cool place. It's like nobody out there. And I actually went out there and stood on the arch, which you're allowed to do. It's in the national forest. It's not a national park or anything. Stood on the arch, sat on the arch, dangled my feet off of it. And there happened to be another hiker there who I think she might have came the same way. She got there after I did. And we were talking to each other, and we ended up using each other's cameras to take pictures of each other.
Oh, nice.
So she took my camera, took a picture of me on there. I borrowed her camera and took a picture of her on there. No idea who she was. I don't think we exchanged names. We talked for a few minutes, but it was cool to get pictures. Because I didn't, when I'm doing these hikes, I'm not carrying a big tripod or anything like that. It's weight and its bulk and everything. And at the time, I wasn't carrying the little mini tripod that fits into my pack like I do now. But it was fun to get pictures. It was fun to be out there. And we were like the only two people out there for a while. And, we came and went at different times. So she got there after I did. I left after or before she did. And it was cool because then we each got to have some time there by ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And do that. That was a lot of fun. I really, really liked that one. Again, nothing super fancy. It was just a good memory that I remember for that year of being out there and doing that hike. So there you go.
Cool.
Give me your next one.
All right. My next one is Greenhorn Mountain. It's about an hour and a half south of here. And it's a beast of a hike. It's around 16 miles round trip, but it's one of the more unique mountains that I've hiked. Because there's a portion of the trail to where you have to go back and forth over an avalanche field, so it makes it like you really have to plan your steps and such. Then when I got to the summit, a storm was starting to roll in, but for some reason there's a bunch of headstones on the summit, which I thought was strange, and just scattered throughout. So I don't know if anyone is actually buried there or if it's just a memorial. But looking out into the wet valley, the storm is rolling in, and it was just a beautiful sight. And then I saw what was the start of a fire. I'm not sure if it was a prescribed burn or a wildfire, but it was way down in the wet valley. So I was just like, oh, it's time to get out of here. And then on my way down, it starts to rain really bad. And I actually ended up trying to cross the creek at one point. My foot slipped off and got stuck between two rocks. So I fell into the creek with the creek water just rushing up into my face and nose. So that was a bit of a panic. I'm drowning. But I found a tree root that was sticking out. I was able to grab that to get me out of the water. And then shortly after that, there is a beautiful rainbow. So it was just an adventure of a hike.
And the cool thing about that one is a lot of people here, if you're going south, you go right past there. Now, that area has been, unfortunately, heavily affected by the Aspen Acres fire. So it's been affected by that. But yeah, I've done a lot of hiking around there. I've never climbed that one. And I think a lot of people miss that. It's a very prominent peak along the front range. It's right there. It's like Pikes Peak. The planes run right into it. I've never hiked it. I've been around there, hiked around there, driven around there, but I've never hiked it. So that's a cool one. And you didn't see a soul.
I saw a family at the very beginning of the trail, but that's it.
Cool. Very cool. All right. For 2021, for mine, it's Channel Islands National Park. It's Anacapa Island. There's a number of islands that make up this national park. This is off the coast of California. This is a trip I did with National Geographic. And specifically, this was the Inspiration Point Trail, not a long hike. This was November 4th of 2021. It was 2.6 miles round trip. What I loved about this one was Inspiration Point was truly inspiring. You're up on this tall mountain, on this island jutting out of the Pacific, and you're up there, and this is Long Island. It's a long, island in there, and coming off of that tip where you're standing is a number of little islands.
Oh, okay.
And the photographs I got of these islands, we were there at the right time of the day. The lighting was perfect, little clouds in the sky. I just loved it because it lived up to its name. You hear a lot of places that have these great names, and you go up there and go, not so much. This is Inspiration Point. Truly was an inspiring view. Here I am in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Not in the middle. I'm a few miles off the coast of California. But you're out there. It's a national park. We were there with the rest of the people from the ship. But just a beautiful, beautiful hike. And the pictures are just fascinating. So it lived up to its name. So give me your next one, Kevin.
All right, it is the Mill Castle Trail in the West Elk Wilderness. It is about halfway between Gunnison and Crested Butte. I actually went there in 2016 with two of my coworkers, and it was my first time backpacking too, which I learned I brought way too much stuff. But this was during
the typical backpacker through hiker mistake the first time around.
Oh yeah. Every time I backpack since then, my packway is lighter and lighter because I just learned no, I didn't really use that. I didn't need that. So it was just a lot of fun because these were coworkers at a newest job that I had started, and there's a bunch of trails, and you can take the main trail, which is the Mill Castle Trail, up to what's called Storm Pass. But that's a few thousand feet up. When we went, there was still a lot of snow up there, so we just found a good spot to set up camp. But geologically speaking, it's an extremely unique area that I haven't seen anywhere else in my trips. But it literally looks like a city skyline or the walls of a castle along the entire canyon. Very, very unique looking. And yeah, it's just my first time that I backpacked where we set up camp. It's flat. It was beautiful. We set up camp and then we just walked up the trail a bit until we hit snow, and then we came back and made food and it was just a great time.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Where's this at again? It's between Gunnison and Crested Butte?
Yeah.
So is that on the highway that goes north out of Crested Butte?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't picture it, but it sounds fun.
Oh, it's a gorgeous area. It is, yeah.
Great. Well, Kevin, this one for 2022, I did this one with you. This was Fisher's Peak State Park.
Oh, yep.
You remember this already. The Challenge Trail, the Fisher's Peak Trail, the Osita Point Trail, the Upper Lone Cub, Lower Lone Cub Trail. This was November 6th, 9.82 miles round trip. This was not too long after Fisher's Peak State Park opened. We couldn't go any further up the peak because they didn't have the trail built yet. Matter of fact, we still ran into crews working on the trails. The trails were open. We were allowed to be up there.
Yeah.
Remember, they were still working on the Osita Point Trail. There's the one that went out there a little bit. This was fun for a number of reasons. We were not the first people. We're not the first 100 people out there, but this was a brand new park with a brand new set of trails, and that we were getting to experience. So this was every trail that I've talked about here was first time I've ever done them. They were new trails, but this was new trails.
Yeah.
These are trails still being constructed in a park that was and to this day still being constructed. And trails are still being constructed down there. And the views were great. And you and I had a great time doing this hike, and we had a blast. It was a lot of fun. Other than the people working up there, we didn't see a soul we expected. But that was my favorite one for 2022, just to be at a new place on new trails. Having you along was great. We had a great time. That was my high point for 2022.
So my next one on the list is the Rito Alto 4-Pass Loop that is outside of Westcliff. And on that hike, I didn't see a soul. It was beautiful. And of course, it's in the name, 4-Pass Loop. So you go up and down 4 times. And it's thousands of feet each time. And I want to say it's about 26 miles round trip, but just stunning. I mean, beautiful. And then you reach areas where you can look into the San Luis Valley, and yeah, it's just a beautiful and stunning hike. I had a blast with it, and there was one point where the bug spray wore off just enough, and I got swarmed. it was so bad that I was like, if I didn't have bug spray on me, like I would get hurt because I was just getting eaten alive like immediately. This was when I had just watched a movie called The Ritual. And it's these guys who are backpacking, and they decide to take a shortcut through the woods, and they find a cult. I saw sticks on the trail in the shape of arrows, pointing to an off-trail place.
Don't go there.
Well, I did, and I saw an area with a lot of religious imagery, but it was like the kind you would find in a scary movie. So I was like, "Oh, nope, I'm out of here." But yeah, it's a beautiful hike. It's outside of West Cliff, which is a really cute little town. I had attempted it a week or two before, and then I got sick on the first mile of the trail.
I was going to say, this is a trip that almost killed you at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I know I got sick from gas station breakfast sandwich or something. So I was like, okay, I'm going back, and I'm gonna finish this. So yeah, that's the next one on my list.
And that's one that falls into the category of being a real accomplishment. That 4-pass loop, from everybody who's ever done it, is not an easy. He said you're going over 4 passes, up and down, thousands of feet. So that's that's a good one. I mean, that's a hard one to do. My one for 2023, this is over near Monarch Pass. This was the Continental. This comes off the top of Monarch Pass. This is the Continental Divide Trail, the Monarch Crest Trail, the old Monarch Pass Trail, Boss Lake, and you start. This was like not a loop. So he started at the top of Monarch Pass and came down to the little town of Garfield, which is that's like a there's nothing there, but it's where this trail comes out at the bottom, and this is not the bottom, but it's halfway up Monarch Pass, I think would be the way to put it, and that's where the trail ends. This was fun. Again, another one. I didn't see a soul for miles, but this runs this knife edge along the Continental Divide Trail. The day I did it, the wind was howling, and I did this one on September 23rd, 11 and a half miles. Takes you along these stunning views on this knife edge of a trail, and then it drops down and goes by a couple of lakes, and then it's this beautiful walk through the forest to get down to the town of Garfield. Just a beautiful hike. This is September. The colors are starting to change. I don't know why this one ended up on my list. I think it just stood out because it was just such a beautiful hike. Had the whole place to myself. Like I said, the colors were changing. There were lakes. I like lakes. And it was a challenge. It was a long hike. It was 11 and a half miles. Mostly downhill. It wasn't like it was super tough, except the wind, like I mentioned, was just howling up there. At one point, I was on this ridge. I walked over to the edge and looked down at the lakes, and I almost had to crawl out to it because I was afraid with how bad the wind was blowing, they would have just blown me right off of it.
Oh, wow.
But that was my hike for 2023. I really enjoyed that hike. It was just fun. I've been kind of up there since then, a couple years ago. I didn't do the whole thing I did. I came in from another direction and got to the lakes and then came back down, much shorter hike. But that was difficult. The trail up to the lakes, which are below the ridge, was difficult to do. And there's some other hikes around there. The Water Dog Lakes are very pretty. So there's a number of them there. But this was my favorite one for that year just because it was a little bit of a challenge. I like trails where I'm by myself. I like trails where the views are great. And I like going by these lakes. And like I said, didn't see a soul until I got almost all the way back down. So the Continental Divide Trail and others, it was kind of, I cobbled a couple of trails together in September 23rd. So that's my 2023 hike.
My next one is Abyss Trail to Helms Lake, which is not too far from the trailhead for Mount Bierstadt. I went there one year with a friend of mine for fall colors, and I'm talking about stunning, just the best fall colors I've ever seen on a trail. We got there at like just the right peak timing. We also got to the trail extremely early, so we beat a lot of the crowds. Even though the trail to the lake, once you get past the main spots to see the vistas of orange and red and yellow, that part of the trail is fine. Like it's just an average trail after that point. But I just will never forget that experience of going a couple miles up, just through Aspen Grove after Aspen Grove, and then stopping at that one point where you just see this like grand view, and it was like stunning.
And I've heard so much of that. For people listening, this is also off of Guanella Pass Road. Am I correct on that?
Yep.
A little ways up about halfway up on the east side.
It's about halfway up. Yeah.
I've hiked some of that. I've never hiked it all the way up to the lake. It's a pretty long hike up to the lake, isn't it? It's about, I want to say 8 or 9 miles. I may be overestimating that. It's a bit of a hike, and it's a fair amount of elevation gain, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's those 12.63 miles.
There you go.
And 3,000 feet of elevation gain.
Woof. So that 3,000 feet of elevation gain is not in 12 miles. It's in about 6.5 miles.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of elevation gain. That's a bear. But the trail is, did you find the trail fairly easy?
Yeah.
We're talking 3,000 feet of elevation gain. It's not easy, but.
Yeah, I found it at my skill level. I would say it's a moderate trail.
So for 2024, we're getting to recent times now. This was one of my favorites. This was in North Carolina. This was the Catawba Falls Trail and the Catawba Ridge. So I went up one trail and came down the other, kind of made a loop out of it. This was in North Carolina. So this was special to me for a couple of reasons. One, I'd never been to North Carolina. I just got there the day before. I was on this trip. This was June 14th, 3.82 miles round trip. There's a couple of things special. I had planned this trip all on my own, the solo trip. My goal was to go out and take pictures of waterfalls. Patreon listeners, you probably remember you got a calendar that year with the waterfall pictures, not just from North Carolina, but from other places. This was special for a couple of reasons. They had recently, just the week before I got there, opened this trail after reconstructing it. So if I was there the year before, a week earlier, I wouldn't have been able to do this one. And out of all the waterfalls I shot, this was the most beautiful one there. I actually set up my tripod in the basin below the waterfall to get pictures. Almost dunked my camera, which would have been bad for the first day of this trip.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a stunningly beautiful waterfall on a newly constructed trail. And my introduction to North Carolina. And I fell in love with the waterfalls. I shot so many waterfalls, did so much hiking. But this was my favorite because, again, a couple of things new for me. And just, I got there and it's like any place else. I had a lot of great information to work with of which waterfalls to go to. And, some of them I went to during that week were, they were nice, but they weren't photogenic.
Oh, yeah.
To have this one be the most photogenic one of the trip and be the first one that I encountered was just the perfect hike for that trip and the best one for the year. So that's my 2024.
Cool.
All the way out to North Carolina. What do you got next?
Well, not North Carolina, but the next one I've talked about on the show a bunch of times, and Bob, you actually mentioned it earlier, but it's the Lost Creek Wilderness Loop that I did years ago. And if you've been a listener, I've mentioned this story a bunch of times, but what it boiled down to is I was backpacking it, expecting to do 28 miles over the weekend, ended up doing 40 miles. It took me a long time to figure out exactly like how I messed up, but it turns out it was as simple as the fact that I started at the wrong trailhead, which added 12 miles round trip. I still don't know why I didn't realize that, but I just remember the next day I was looking at the map and I was like, I should be over here by now, but no, I'm all the way down here. Like, what? And it was a Sunday, so I wanted to make sure I got back in my car, so like search and rescue wouldn't be called, because I told my mom, like, hey, I'll be back in the Springs like late afternoon. I ended up not getting back to my car till about 10 o'clock at night, plus the hour and a half drive back. And I went to work the next day. I had no idea why, but it was an experience.
Now I don't feel so bad about bringing it up earlier.
Yeah.
That's what sick days are for, Kevin. After a thing like that, take a sick day.
Yeah.
I remember that story. It's a great story. Didn't you have an encounter with a moose or?
Yeah, moose. 2 of them.
Yeah, that's got to be.
And I was already like just exhausted at this point. The sun is setting, but the trail followed the creek where the moose were standing in. So I went up this hill and went all the way around them because I was like, I'm not going to hike next to them.
You made the right choice.
So I was already just exhausted, and it's just like, I don't want to go up this hill. Like, come on.
Yeah. Great story. Yeah, we've talked about that a number of times. So for 2025, this one's my favorite one. This one is in Iceland. This is the Grimsey Island. This is on Grimsey Island. I don't think there's even a name of a trail. May 29th, 2025, 2.36 miles, short hike. We were on this island. This island sits north of the main island of Iceland.
Okay.
And yeah, again, you get there either by boat or plane, obviously. And about 50% of the cruises around Iceland actually can get to this island during their cruise. The cruise that went up after us could not get there because here's what makes this hike special. This was a hike where we crossed the Arctic Circle.
Oh, okay.
Was it the prettiest hike around that we did that week? No. Was it the most dramatic? No. But it is a hike where we literally hiked across the Arctic Circle. Now, there was a lot of other stuff we did on that island. We took a lot of pictures of puffins, cute little birds. If you've looked at my photography website, there's about 1 million pictures of puffins on my website. Plus, there was a lot of them on my social media. But this one made it because, like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
I mean, the only people get to do this, people go to the northern reaches of Alaska, Canada, something like that, Greenland. But here we were hiking across the Arctic Circle. And there's a little village there and an airfield. There's a sign there that says it's the Arctic Circle. But in reality, the Arctic Circle moves because the Earth does not spin. It wobbles a little bit, spins a little bit on the axis. So the Arctic Circle shifts. So we actually had to hike back quite a ways. There was this big round rock that marked where the Arctic Circle is. And the locals push that rock back and forth every couple of years to mark where. So I have pictures of me hugging this big round rock and standing in front of it and stuff like that. But it made my list because it's like, I'm never again probably ever going to hike across the Arctic Circle. But I did it last year. So my favorite hike for 2025, Grimsey Island, Iceland, hiking across the Arctic Circle.
Cool.
Or crossing the line for the Arctic Circle, however you want to put it. Again, a short hike, 2.36 miles. Not a big deal. Not the most photogenic thing we did, but damn, was that kind of cool to hike across the Arctic Circle.
Yep.
So that's my 2025 hike.
Nice. This is a hike that I did in the Great Smoky Mountains where I had my mom drop me off at so the trails I did were Rainbow Falls, Mount LeConte Summit, Alum Caves, and I think that's it. But I had her drop me off super early in the morning. It's nighttime still. I hiked to the summit of Mount LeConte. There's a cool like tower thing up there. And then I stopped in this one area that I came across, and it's a camp. With some old buildings that were built in like the 1920s. And I had breakfast there. It was my own food, obviously. And then hiking back down, I didn't do a loop. It was a point-to-point hike. And then you pass by these giant caves that are really cool looking. The place was just full of water. So it's water everywhere. But I just remember sitting up at that camp, and it's super foggy. It's called the Great Smoky Mountains. And eating, and it's just so quiet. Then hiking along, the fog will lift up a little bit, and you see this amazing view, and then fog comes back down, and you don't see anything. And I remember a part of the Appalachian Trail was on that route that I took, so that was cool to say, like, oh yeah, I've hiked a part of that, even though it's like a half mile of it. But yeah, it was just a very out of the normal type of hike because it's such a different climate environment. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that.
So my hike for 2026 this year. Now, we're only a little more than halfway through, but this is my favorite hike so far this year. This was you're going to recognize this one, the Lake Agnes hike.
Oh, yep.
In State Forest State Park. This was just a couple of weeks ago, July 8th, 3.6 miles round trip. Why was this my favorite one? Because the views were to die for.
Yep.
The photos I took there were absolutely to die for. They was just gorgeous. So I was up there with a friend. We spent a couple of days up there, not in Lake Agnes, but in the state park. We did another trail a couple of days later on the other side of the ridge from there. That was also beautiful, but this one was the prettiest one. Columbine's out the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
Perfectly still lake. I don't know if you saw the picture I posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
The reflection, it was just to die for. So my favorite hike so far this year. Talk to me at the end of the year, but I'm going to bet this is still going to be way up there. I am going to I am taking a trip in September, so who knows? But so far in 2026, the Lake Agnes hike in State Forest State Park. Anybody who goes up there can do it. This is it was 3.36 miles for us round trip because the water level was low enough. We were able to get 3/4 of the way around the island of the lake. You can't always do that every year. So we were able to extend it a little bit longer. It's usually about a 2-mile round trip, but we went further. So that's my favorite one for this year.
Cool. So my final one on the list is Medicine Bow Peak, which I did it last year, but these hikes are not in order. And the reason that stands out for me is that I did go once before, back in 2014, I believe, and I had been wanting to go back ever since then. And so I decided to do a little trip out of it where I got a place to stay in the town of Walden, which is right next to State Forest State Park. So I finally went, had an amazing time. It's beautiful out there. It's just gorgeous. I mean, otherworldly. And I only found out about this place because a coworker of mine at an old job said that he loved fish up there. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did it up and the photos just stunned me. But what was significant about this hike is as many of you know, I had a major health scare in 2024. So I scaled back to hiking dramatically just because of anxiety and stuff about my health. And I didn't want to be in the middle of nowhere and then like something happens. But this hike was the first big one that I did after that. Because it's round trip is like 12 miles or something. And it's a few 1,000 feet of elevation gain. And of course I was nervous and stuff because thankfully I saw a lot of other folks on the trail and stuff, and I was like, at the moment I feel weird, I'm just gonna stop and stuff. But no, I felt great, and it was just like, it was nice because that helped me feel much better about my health, and it's what helped me do bigger and bigger hikes after that.
That's a great hike.
Yeah,
that sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And it's when I'm talking about how beautiful it is, I mean, just like, I can't overstate that enough.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. 10 years of Outdoors Hiking About podcast, our 10 favorite hikes. Mine are actually 10 year by year. Kevin just put 10 together, which is great. And to be fair, the list that was sent out, we just said your 10 favorite ones. So I was one to just decide to do year by year. Not that there was any rules. We don't have any rules here. We just do what we want. That was a lot of fun. Kevin, again, thanks for your contribution to this podcast for so many years. Again, 10 years worth of this. Thanks everybody out there for listening to 10 years. We're going to have some more stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks to celebrate this. And then we need to start planning what we're going to do for number 500, which will be sometime mid next year. We should be hitting 500.
Okay.
Sometime around the summertime. So we got to plan on what we're going to do for that. And I'm getting some comments on Facebook about things people would like to see, which great ideas. So keep sending them. Either message us or post on our social media. Drop us an email. Kevin and I both at our websites have links to where you can just drop us a line. We love hearing from everybody. But there you have it. Our 10 favorite hikes for the last 10 years we've been doing this podcast. And coincidentally, on my list, it started after we actually started the podcast because we started in August and my one for 2016 was in November. So there you go.
Cool.
Pretty cool. All right, everybody. Thanks again for listening to the Outdoors Hiking About podcast. Thank you so much for 10 years of listening to this. If you've been here since day one, that's awesome.
Yes.
You know what? If you're a day one listener, drop me a line. Let me know. And if you're not, that's great too. I'm glad you picked it up whenever you picked it up. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, everyone.